I just want to talk to him.
Wait, why do you have a shotgun?
I just want to talk to him.
Dad, this is ridiculous.
I just want to talk to him. I just want to talk to him. I just want to talk to him. I just want to shoot him. I just want to talk.
So episode 6 of Disventure Camp season 5 just came out about 18 hours ago as of editing this video. Going into the episode, I didn't think I would like it all that much, as a bunch of people were Vorja posting about how the episode sucked on Twitter, which is what happens pretty much every time an episode comes out. But even with that, when I first sat down to watch the episode, I came out liking it. Now, I don't think the episode is all that incredible, and there are some issues with it, but overall I think it's an enjoyable episode that does most of what it set out to do correctly. So in today's video I'll be going over episode 6 and my full thoughts on the episode. The good, the bad, and everything in between. Anyways, with all that out of the way, onto the video. So we first open up after Alex's elimination from last episode, and this sense was pretty decent. I am a tad bit worried for what they are doing with Natalia, however. I do understand that she's still wary about Anastasia, and she doesn't really trust her. That's understandable for the most part given how she doesn't like her. However, I feel like she shouldn't literally be this mad over the fact that Anastasia helped them, because like, she did nothing wrong in that situation and was being nice. And it isn't even like she was boasting about her help, or trying to gain something from them in return, so Natalia's reaction seems a bit overblown. Which I get is the point, as this is probably going to be Natalia's major strategy and character flaw for this season, which is something a character like her needs. Also, if you pause for a second when Tom walks up to Natalia, it looks like he has no eyes, lol. Anyways, moving on to the next scene, which I actually really liked with Gabby and Anastasia. It was really sweet to watch, and I'm definitely glad these two are finally getting interactions, as they were very funny to watch in episode 5. And I do like how this scene slightly honed in more on Gabby's arc for this season, and her feeling like she has to put others before herself, and I'm a bit excited to see how they're going to take this plotline. Overall though, this scene was pretty good. And moving on to the next scene with Aiden and Evie, which was pretty funny. I'm still not big on Aiden, but this was a decent episode for him, and this was the first episode since the swap that I've been able to sort of tolerate him. As instead of being a prick, he spends most of this episode hanging out with Evie, with some pretty funny results, and Aiden's facile expressions are hysterical. I don't really want Aiden to stay around in the season for too long, but if he does, I hope they keep him like this, as he would be sort of tolerable if he was doing this, instead of whatever the fuck he was trying to do in episode 3 and 4. Moving on to the next sense with ARA, Finn, and Olivia, which I liked for the most part. I do like how they're giving the detail of the fans thinking episode 6 is the musical, as that makes them feel more like actual fans in my opinion. And this scene overall was pretty funny as ARA and Finn continue to bounce off with each other very well. And the scene with him and Olivia was alright, I guess. Anyways, onto the challenge, which I really liked. I am glad that Odd Nations is starting to branch out and expand the scope of the challenges, and I have really wanted them to do a challenge in a past lost location for a while now. But even with such a great challenge set up, we still couldn't escape the inevitable, which is Benji sitting out for the third goddamn time this season. Are you fucking serious? At this point, I wouldn't be surprised if Odd Nations just doesn't have a plan for Benji and is just having him sit to the sides till they figure out what they want to do with him, because like, this is ridiculous. And I mostly say this because no other character has been done this dirty by Odd Nation cartoons so far. So to see this happen routinely to Benji in almost every episode just really sucks. I'm not sure why they even decided to have him come back if they were just gonna do this to him. And at that point, they should have just brought back Linda or Isabel, because they probably would have actually done something with them by now. I'm trying not to be harsh, as the season has just started and Benji could still get focus, but it just sucks at the same time because we're over 2 months into the season and Benji is still not getting fucked over. Hopefully in episode 7 EA gets to do something because he won't be forced to sit out, or one of the characters will call him out on how he's being useless, and we'll actually get an explanation for why he hasn't been competing in any of the challenges. Anyways, moving on to the actual events of the challenge, which were pretty fun and allowed for some cool dynamics. First off, I really liked the trio between Lake, Spencer, and Bruno. They were pretty entertaining, and I find it funny how almost all of their senses in this episode, We're just Lake and Spencer fighting with Bruno sitting awkwardly in the background. There has been a bit of discourse over who was right in the situation between Lake and Spencer this episode. And me personally, I think both had good points and we're sort of in the right. Spencer was right from a strategic perspective as he was trying to help his team win, and what Bruno and Lake were going to do probably would have slowed them down. Quick problem though, Spencer is and was kind of acting like an asshole, and he was being a bit condescending when talking to Lake and Bruno, which would explain why Lake doesn't like him. And speaking of Lake, I really liked her this episode. Her interactions with Bruno were pretty sweet, and it's nice to see her actually being involved in a conflict with somebody, as it gives her slightly more stakes in the story. And I'm excited to see what they're going to do with her and Spencer, as I think they could be good foils for each other, and they could result in some very entertaining conflict. Anyways, moving on to the next scene with Natalia, Fior, and Rosa, which I liked. The first half of it is pretty funny, and I find it ironic how a lot of us thought Fior and Rosa would be working together this episode, only for the opposite to happen in a sense. Rosa and Natalia's interaction were pretty cool. I didn't really expect these two to ever interact this season, but I'm kinda glad they are as they bounce off of each other really well, and I think it would be interesting to see them maybe work together strategicity. I'm still not a big fan of whatever they're doing with Rosa, and are thinking that Anarissa broke up. It feels very random, and it ain't really been followed Thor within the past few EPs does. So I'm hoping it ends soon. Anyways, moving on to the follow-up scene, the first sequence with Finn and Evie was pretty funny, and I really wished we got to see more of their rivalry this episode, as it's entertaining. And I am not a big fan of Olivia throwing the challenge again this episode, but at least she wasn't as obnoxious about it as she was last time. So that counts for something, I guess. Anyways, moving on to the next big scene, which was with Natalia and Fior, which I didn't really expect. When last episode ended, I was thought that she was going to work with Ali and Benji, and my backup choice if that didn't happen was Rosa. And I, along with most people, were proven incorrect, as she ended up working with Natalia, which I think is pretty cool, as Fior and Natalia could be a pretty entertaining duo as seen by this episode. And I think it will be interesting to see Fior try to play as a more social player going forward, with her probably screwing up a lot of the time and saying shit that makes her look bad, only for Natalia to play damage control, which would be pretty funny to see. Anyways, moving on to the scene between Ren and Nura, which I really liked, as we got to learn a bit about Ren and how he used to work in a carnival, which definitely explains all of them highly athletic shit he does a daily basis. And the end of the scene does kind of imply something with Nura, which I think is going to be interesting, and I do hope that Ren and Nura interact more as they have a really fun dynamic and good chemistry. Anyways, moving on to the next scene with Sam, Spencer, Lake, and Bruno, which is a bit of a handful. First off, the scene with Bruno, Spencer, and Lake is a bit of a mixed bag on Spencer's end. I get that Spencer is going to be upset at Bruno for leaking the plan, that's reasonable. But Spencer, my brother in Christ, did you learn anything from Season 4? Insulting your own ally and claiming they do not know what they're doing right in front of their face is the textbook definition of bad strategy. This is part of the reason why I can't really understand the people acting like Lake was fully in the wrong. Spencer was acting like a massive prick here. Granted, he's hilarious when he acts like this, and I honestly want more of posh asshole Spencer, but still, that comes with the downside of some character rightfully getting annoyed with him. Overall, this scene was pretty decent, and the follow-up sequence with Spencer and Sam is alright. I do think that what they're doing could be interesting, but it feels a bit too pushed for my liking. And this feels like a plot that they're obviously going to follow up in either in the merge or in a team swap scenario. I'm not really complaining though, as I do think a Sam and Spencer rivalry could be cool. I am just not a big fan of how they're building it up, as it feels way too obvious. Anyways, the end to the challenge is fine, I guess. Olivia throwing the challenge pissed me off, but at least she didn't get away scot-free with it, so I'm not as mad. In conclusion, this challenge was pretty fun. It had a lot of cool dynamics, and a challenge with callbacks from prior seasons is always going to be fun in my opinion. I do personally wish that some trios got more focus, such as some of them like ARA, Aiden, and Junior basically didn't exist in the challenge. Anyways, moving on to the elimination, which is a handful to say the least.
Holy crap, Lois!
Let's cut to the chase, shall we? Finn getting eliminated here was 100% deserved. Don't get me wrong, I like Finn a lot. He's easily in my top 5, probably 3, favorite characters in this season on the fan side. But this guy did himself absolutely no favors with how he was acting as he nuked his social game here. Did he have a right to be mad at Olivia? Fuck yes. Olivia was throwing the comps on purpose and fucking over her team, so Finn being rightfully upset at her is okay. However, Finn definitely went way too far, and a lot of the shit he said towards the end was unnecessary. Olivia needed somebody to call her out on her shit. She did not need somebody to call her a dumb bitch and start making her cry, if that makes sense. And I'm not even big of a fan of Olivia, and I would have preferred if she got out here over Finn, but I'm not gonna act like that just means she deserves to be treated like this. Luckily, however, Finn doesn't get away with this scot-free. As Ren, like the goat he is, immediately steps in and makes a plan to blindside him with the idol, which was a decent move. And I do like the senses that build up to it. The sense with Ren and Sam was good, and with some decent gameplay on Sam's side. And the sense with Dunia and Ren was very sweet. I love the way these two work together, and seeing them support each other is very nice. I'm not ready for the day that one of these to get eliminated because they are hard carrying the fans right now. I'm not sure if I'm entirely sold with the idol being used this early. If it was up to me, I would have had it happen later to provide more shock or tension. But I'm not really complaining because you seeing Finn rage while he gets idled out, as the rest of the Eclipse trio celebrates was the funniest shit ever and the textbook definition of karma. Also, this was a pretty decent episode for Sam. I like to see him playing the game more and interacting with more people. And after this episode, I mostly get why the fandom likes him so much. I do think that he's kind of bordering towards Gary Stew territory, as so far all of his game moves have gone basically perfectly. But that's probably changed soon, with Spencer probably being Sam's main foil starting at the merge or the team swap. Overall though, this elimination was pretty good. I would have preferred for Aiden or Olivia to get out, but I'm not going to complain because it was well written, makes sense for the most part, and is very entertaining to watch. The only thing I don't really like about it is how ARA and Finn didn't get to say goodbye to each other, which is a trend that Season 5 has been doing for their elimination that I really don't like. And speaking of ARA, I'm pretty excited to see how she's going to play the game now that she's solo. I currently predict that she's going to team up with Sam at some point, but who knows? Anyways, this elimination was pretty solid and enjoyable. And with all that being said, it's time to get to the conclusion of this video. Episode 6 of Disventure Camp Season 5 is a pretty good episode. It's not a very impressive episode, but it does most of what it set out to do correctly, has some pretty funny moments, a very entertaining and satisfying elimination, and some good character moments all around. If I had to rank this episode out of 10, I would probably give it about an 8.25 out of 10. Anyways, that's about all I got. Thank you all so much for watching. If you liked this video, consider liking, commenting, and subscribing and turning on post notifications so you never miss another video from me. And I'll see you guys in my next video, hopefully tomorrow. Peace out. Take care. Bye bye.